was in my room maybe revising or like, I don't know, a midterm test that I needed to prepare for, I'd go in there and he's finishing like a Totti drawing or like halfway through the face. I'm like, what is this man doing?
In terms of drawing, it was always something I did as a child.
I want to go back to how you actually started at university.
I was drawing on paper, then scanning the drawings in the learning grid, and then sending them through to this very tiny website that was willing to publish them. That pretty much triggered a lot of opportunities that I never thought were possible.
The 2018 FIFA World Cup was a very special moment where you did the mural by Box Park in Shoreditch. And then Adidas came to you, did the Messi, the Go drawing.
So yeah, Copa 90 were always pioneers.
And that obviously materialised in like working with them. Were you there in-house in Israel?
I was really watching them since I was 15, and I told them at the time, and then they decided to include me for whatever, a 20-second segment. And I was so happy. It was an incredible week.
Kojey special.
I find him brilliant, so I was super happy to do something with him. I don't even want to say for him, because he's such an amazing guy that there was a lot of input from him in terms of art direction. As I told you, until this year, I didn't even believe this was going to be a career.
That's amazing. Sick, eh? Who's that? No, I'm Dutchman. Yeah, man. So yeah, we just came to present that to you.
Thank you so much.
And I have to take a photo.
You have Ronaldinho here, Puma there, and then Spicy Take. Everything filming and shit.
Yes. Yes.
We I'm surprised we haven't had any Stan accounts started yet.
Yeah, no. I know.
What, for the podcast?
Yeah.
You haven't released anything yet?
Yeah, after one episode I was assuming at least a fan fiction.
I'm a fan. I left a comment, I think.
Yeah.
You're
Did I
the
not?
one.
Yeah.
What did I say?
You said class. Or class, depending where you come from.
But no, we have over 100 views on the Facebook.
How many people did you send it to?
Well, exactly, this is the thing.
I sent it to about 3 or 4.
Yeah, I reckon I did about 10. But how many people do you reckon, how many times do you reckon it's us?
I've got like 25, I think.
You 25?
I haven't brought myself to look at the
I looked at it. No, I looked at it. I looked at it. We had about like an
As much as you can analyze 100 viewers.
There's like a 52-minute video, like an hour and something, and the average watch time was like 5 minutes.
Okay.
You probably brought our average up to new heights. Perhaps I have to actually.
What? By watching it once?
Yeah, by watching it once.
Yeah.
That was how much it skewed, because of how little people watch it.
Sure. But it will come. It will come.
It will come. Yeah, in due time. In due time.
For sure.
Who are we here with today, Tom? Who are we here?
It's a boy that I've not seen in months.
Close to our heart.
Yeah.
No, bro. Almost
I've
a
seen
year.
him. I've seen him about on social media because
I mean, you can't
get
miss
away from
him. You can't miss him, really. You can't miss him.
Come on.
Ubiquitous.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So, who is the man?
Well, this is Federico Manasse. He's a long time.
Oh my
friend.
days.
Oh, he's got it wrong. I'm
I'm not gonna have this 3 times in a row.
It's Federico, actually.
Fuck you.
Is it Frederic?
It's Federico's right, but every time even someone who knows me well, just is confronted with my surname,
What did I say?
Manasse.
I said Manasse.
Did he?
He's back. Nah, the video camera will prove that he did not say it. We're all right. He did not say it.
Yeah, no, but it's Manasse. Yeah, but people always, English-speaking people always assume that it's a mute E. I don't know why.
Okay.
Well, that's
You need
generally how E's are, to be fair, on the end of words. You know.
I'm not French.
Well, it's a special man. It's a special man. Working full-time for 433, the footballing media giant. 25 million Instagram followers, is that correct? 25 million?
Correct.
Imagine having your work feed by 25 million every time you post. It's not too bad, is it? But he's worked not only with them, with the likes of Adidas, Bleacher Report,
The ball.
the ball.
proudly so. Yeah,
He's endorsed by Hector Bellerin.
Yeah.
The great man Ronaldinho himself has endorsed him.
Yeah.
He's a special man.
And now, Spicy Takes podcast.
And now it's Spicy Takes podcast, so he's actually reached
On the level of the boar.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much bigger than this,
We
actually.
have Ronaldinho here, Puma there, and then Spicy Takes.
I forgot Puma, actually. How can you forget
He
Puma?
was just name dropping that one.
Yeah, it was unnecessary, actually.
I forgot. I thought you
You're
said
getting too big for your boots, man.
No. Stay humble.
Where should we start? Where we first met? Where did we first meet?
Yeah. I mean,
How did this come
How
about?
did you two first meet?
On the first day of university. Yeah, what an emotional day.
You lived in the double room with Josh Adoy, legend. And I remember waiting around for the first day. Everyone had arrived. but there was an empty space in the double room, and we were thinking, well, it must be a boy because it's Josh and Doyle's and there has to be a boy. We're like, who could it be? Who could it be? And around, I think it was late. It was like 11:30 p.m. one day. A fat Italian man walks in with his curls.
Correct, but we didn't become friends immediately, but soon enough.
Yeah. What were your first thoughts of Pranav when you first met him?
What can you think?
First thoughts I really don't remember, but I remember that we bonded over Italian trap music, which was a great way to bond with someone. It told me a lot about how open-minded Pranav was, because when I would be sneaking in some Italian tunes at pre-drinks, average person would go like, "What the fuck is that?" And then what's that? And then Pranav would like look at me from the other side of the room. He's like, "It's the Italian trap." I'm like, yeah. So we became friends like that, and then it was other common interests, other common friends, and then it was amazing. I'm so super lucky to meet him in accommodation.
I remember the first time I met Fed, or became aware of who Fed was. It was the day that Donald Trump was elected president.
Wow, what a nice special day.
The evening. So it was voting night, and everyone had gone to like the SUH room to see the votes come in, and then people quickly sort of piled back into their
our kitchen.
We went back to your kitchen, and I remember we were like put some chips in the oven or something. I remember I was with a particular girl, and Fed was like articulating himself in whatever way, and she leans to me and goes, "Oh, he's so good looking, isn't he?"
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it was never said again.
Yeah.
First and last time.
No. And that was and I was like, yeah, dickhead. Yeah.
You're going to have to tell me who it was.
No, after.
Really, I'm blushing. I'm about to blush.
Yeah, you're literally not red at all. There's literally no red. You're just so...
It's because I look ill, because I haven't seen the sun in like 6 years.
So Amsterdam.
Yeah.
It's Amsterdam
in the UK before.
But if we just sort of rewind even from university and to talk about just the way in which you were introduced to the career you have now, what was your first memory of drawing, of sports illustration maybe in particular?
I think in terms of drawing, it was always something I did as a child, and my mom really I would say encouraged me to do it. So, and it was always something I found myself being relatively good at, which I was speaking to Pranav about, is for me like an essential component of anything I enjoy. I guess because I thought I was good, or because people thought I was good, I really enjoyed it, and so it was just a self-strengthening passion. And then after really not taking it seriously at all ever, I started at university in first year, and Pranav witnessed the whole thing, and I don't know, I guess I just started. I had a lot of confidence coming from the people who were around me, so I just thought I would put it out there in the internet. And then that pretty much triggered a lot of opportunities that I never thought were possible in terms of work, and gradually kind of made me understand it could be a career. And I never really aimed per se to become a full-time illustrator in football. I'm not even sure that's me anyway, long term. But as long as I was enjoying it, I was doing it, and something always came out of something, and then here we are. It was really not my aim at any point. Maybe not until the end of university, where I was realizing that I had to shape my career path in some direction, and I thought it would be really good fun to do this full time. But it was never an aim, it was always a passion. Yeah.
And somehow you managed to turn that passion into an occupation, which is quite special in itself. But I want to go back to how you actually started at university. What was the utensils being used? Was it a pencil and a paper and a scanner and a learning grid?
Pranav again was there. He saw it first in the first person. He can probably give his own view of it. But at the beginning, initially I was writing about football on a number of websites, more so to occupy my free time than anything else. And then I kind of realized I'm not that good at writing, and also that it's really hard to make a career out of journalism, I think, because there are so many people, especially in football, who are willing to write for free, who are good and better than you, and I don't know, the competition is just way too rife. In illustration, it's a much more select niche, I would say. There's less people doing it, and there's even less people who know about it. I don't know, it's just a completely different environment. So I started shifting towards that, and I was drawing on paper, then scanning the drawings in the learning grid, and then sending them through to this very tiny website that was willing to like publish them. So initially it was really like scrappy stuff, like drawings with like ink marks from my hand that I was trying to edit out on my laptop. So that was before I started drawing digitally. But that was where it all began.
I remember we would walk into his room, and he didn't really tell us at the beginning because it was just a side passion.
Yeah.
And we walked in your room, we sort of stuck around his wall would be like these drawings that he'd done, he sketched out on the paper, and obviously it wasn't digital at that point, so you could stick them up after. And we were like, that's pretty damn good, Federico. I mean, you probably have the potential to do a lot more.
I think that encouragement was important, both from my friends at the time and from my family. They really were supportive of it. I think in a moment like first year of university, where you guys know as much as I do that you're having a lot of fun, but you're also feeling somewhat lost. You have a lot of free time compared to school, and you're not really sure what to do with it. And I don't know, if you're a somewhat serious person, you want to do something that you feel is helpful, not just have fun. Right. So that's all it was initially, just an outlet to feel productive, if you will. And yeah, then it developed into something completely different.
Yeah, so you rock up at university, and we know as students that you get bombarded with all these adverts to go to these spring weeks and apply for all these internships. That sounds like it wasn't something that you were necessarily interested in. Like, what was it that made you really want to sort of forego the sort of traditional careers that we're kind of thrown at us, and follow your passions?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because it's very easy to get sucked into it in a place especially like Warwick, where a lot of people are in that mindset, and you also have so many opportunities that it's actually very easy to access that pathway of sending 1,000 applications to banks and consulting companies and whatever. But I don't know, I was always somewhat afraid of it, and I really didn't want to do it. It really stressed me out, and I don't think that I chose drawing as an alternative. I just think that's what I enjoyed doing, and I was concentrating a lot of my time in it, but it was not an alternative to the other pathway. I just ignored it, probably because I was scared. Yeah.
So when did it really start? Like, when did you start thinking that this is something that you can actually have a career in, or potential to even grow a following around? When did that really click in your mind?
In all honesty, I would say not until this last year, because I mean, it was not until, say, February this year that I started discussing like full-time possibilities, and I never contemplated this as a freelancer career, because I think that would be a really stressful lifestyle to live, just waiting for commissions and not having security. I don't really feel like I could.
Yeah, freelancing's a bitch.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
Yeah, I really don't feel like I never felt like I was in the position to do it with total, tranquility. So I never considered it, and so I always thought I'm gonna just do this as a side thing. But actually, then in February this year, I started to get a few, conversations going about possible full-time employment in illustration, which I never thought was actually concretely possible. And then when I realized it was, even though I didn't know I was gonna get it, I thought, okay, it might be worth making a final push for it, instead of, getting a job that I ultimately don't like, or doing a master's just to take time for a year.
And how did that make you feel? Because I imagine, when sometimes you got to fill out a job application and it's something that you really don't want, and you contrast that with something that you could envisage yourself doing for at least a long period of time, something you're passionate about, you care about. It must have been super evident when this sort of became something with actual legs.
For sure. And that, what you say about application letters in particular, it was very evident to me that I wanted to do it when I was writing these letters, because when I made job applications for jobs that I really didn't actually want, but I thought would be okay, I could really perceive the extent to which I was lying about my interests. In fact.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah, it's the half of what you're saying is completely like fictitious. And on the other hand, when I was applying, and it wasn't a lot of applications, I don't know, 4 or 5, because these are not like frequent opportunities, but expressing my interest in a full-time position in illustration or in football media in general, I could feel it pouring out of me. The letter would write itself. It was very different. So I really realized I would have fun doing it. I can only wish like for other people to like have the same when they write a job application.
It's sort of a different kind of, because of the different sector you're in, quite a unique sector. It's not really the application that gets you the role, it's more the portfolio that backs you up. And when you think about how much time you dedicate to that, even from the beginning, like I remember the Totti stuff for Roma. That was, I think that I perceive that as your first kind of big like project for a proper like mainstream source.
For sure.
Can you just explain that though?
Yeah, what did you do for Roma? I guess you can explain that.
It was at the very beginning of when I started to, as I said, put my stuff out there. And effectively, the reality of what I did was like a very kind of scrappy agreement to do something for free for Roma, just because I wanted exposure, and they were happy to. They have a very liberal kind of social media management.
And their Twitter is absolute fire.
Exactly.
They were the first Italian club. I've seen loads of European clubs are now on it with their like English Twitter accounts. Yeah. But Roma were the first one I took notice.
They were class, and they still are. And they were always willing to experiment. So I just sent an email, one of so many emails that I sent over the years, to an editor. I mean, actually the main social media editor at Roma. Just telling him, look, I've done a couple of drawings, I hadn't done many at the time, I just sent them to him, this is what I can do, I would love to do something for Roma. And then next thing I know, he's thinking of making me do something for pretty much the most important event of their football year, which was Totti's retirement day, his last game for the club. And I did 25 portraits of him, one per every year at the club. If you look at them, I don't think they're incredible at all. It was literally a case of me wanting an opportunity, them being happy to experiment and happy to give me a platform. Kind of a mutually beneficial situation. And for me, it was amazing. So I had less than a month to prepare this, so I was pretty much doing one every day. In exam season.
It was exam season as well. That's the thing. That's what people won't realise at home. But like, I remember going to your room every day. Like I was in my room maybe revising, or like I don't know, a midterm test that I needed to prepare for. I'd go in there and he's finishing like a Totti drawing, or like halfway through the face. I'm like, what is this man doing? Like
that's what I was doing, and I remember Pranav being a bit baffled because I wasn't studying.
It's the dedication that was incredible.
I really wanted to.
It's because he studies throughout the year, unlike you, who just
I'm not even sure that's true. But I really wanted to grasp the opportunity, so I did that, and then that was my first big thing. And it wasn't a case of it brought me a big audience or it testified that I was especially good, but it gave me some legitimacy, and it was. That and many other projects were just a case of building on top of what I had already done. So at that point, the next time I sent an email, I was able to say, I did this for Roma, prestigious client or whatever, big body of work, showed that I could do something. Because you don't realize, but I think as an artist, you trick yourself into thinking that clients and potential clients will be more creative than you, and kind of see what you have and imagine that you could do something else that you haven't already done, and then pitch you this idea. But actually, they really, really rely on what you've already done. They kind of scroll through your portfolio and ask you to replicate something similar to something that you already did because they like it. So you may have things in your locker that you haven't done before, and if you haven't done them before, clients and potential clients will never imagine that you can do them, even though you could. So doing things is super important just to testify that you're able to do them, because you never know who might want you to do something similar in the future.
So do you fear that there's almost a potential risk, because obviously you've specialised a little bit more now, given that you're at 433 and you're definitely sort of honing your sort of style and craft. Do you ever feel there's a risk that you might be kind of doing very much a Fede style thing and not, I don't know, like, are you looking for opportunities to branch out elsewhere still in terms of new projects, new opportunities?
I mean, I think by now what I've done so far testifies that I am versatile, that I have a style, because I think it's important to find something that you're most comfortable with, but that I can do other things as well. And I think in the niche that I work in, I think people appreciate that. So I don't think I'm at risk of people believing that I can only do what I'm doing at the moment. And in terms of other projects, I think, obviously because I'm in a full-time position, I can't really do the majority of things that I was doing before, especially not in the same industry. But when it comes, for example, to music stuff, I really want to start doing more illustration in the music industry, which is not, it doesn't clash with what I do at 43, and it allows me to express myself in a completely different way, more abstract if you want, and just much more, less grounded in events in the footballing world and more so in whatever the vibe is and the energy, and that's fun.
Who was your dream person if you had to illustrate like an artist?
Something for an artist.
Oh yeah, a music artist.
Yeah, wow.
Kojey's special. I mean, Kojey.
It is special, really. Yeah.
Kojey Radical for anyone.
Yeah, listen to the album. Fantastic.
It's a great album. I find him brilliant, so I was super happy to do something with him. I don't even want to say for him because he's such an amazing guy that there was really a lot of input from him in terms of art direction, and that was it was fantastic to work with someone who I admire so much as an artist, side by side, just sending each other constant drafts and audios and stuff and banging out something that both of us really rated. That was amazing. And I think honestly that was a bit of a dream job, dream gig. Obviously it would be great to do something for one of the for anyone in the UK scene. Honestly, I like a lot of them. I couldn't pick. Imagine doing something for Skepta, for example.
Exactly.
Then I would leave.
That's it, done. Close the Instagram countdown, Twitter's gone.
Yeah, but I don't think that's on the cards.
Wow, give it 2 years. I want to touch on something you said there, actually, because you said, Kojey, it was quite a lot of mutual respect. Like, he gave you some sort of specification and let you kind of roam free, but he was actually more specific than some others. But how do you, I guess your answer to this is going to be that it depends. But what kind of style do you prefer working with? One that is quite stringent or sticks with like specific criteria that they want, or is it someone that gives you more flexibility and just trust your creativity?
I think obviously it's much more, if you have the right ideas up your sleeve and you are given creative freedom, it's very enjoyable because you really get to have fun and release something that other people may not be thinking about, and it's very gratifying and fun. So other times, if you don't have any ideas, it's very comforting to have the client be very specific about what they want. Otherwise you could easily have a feeling of frustration and block, and you don't know how to bring anything to life because you haven't had enough input. So I think a mixture of the two is always nice. Have that sufficient input from the client and sufficient freedom to give your own spin on what they have in mind.
And with that in mind, something that I've noticed with some of the writing that I do, when you start very low, and the writing that I do is nowhere near the sort of level that you are.
Well, don't put yourself down.
No, but
really don't put yourself down.
No,
it's very good.
But in terms of the circulation, obviously I'm artist level quality, but what I meant to say was, have you noticed? Are you treated differently now that you are somewhat more successful than you were a few years ago?
Who by?
Well, I don't know. Do you notice it in the way in which when you contact people and just, you wouldn't get replies a lot of the times to begin with? Now people like kind of look up and take you a bit more seriously.
It's always relative. Like, I think because this spectrum of, what are we calling it? Are you talking about fame?
No. Clout.
We can't even say that.
We can say somewhat a certain level of clout.
within the niche, within football media, of course. Okay, I would say that you're always relatively to someone else in the same environment a nothing. So there's, I mean, especially now that I've only been doing this seriously for a couple of years, I really don't think I can, act up against anyone, especially in an industry where, unlike music, where popular opinion dictates your success, my success always depends on the people I'm working for. So I can't act arrogant in any way because they can just decide that my attitude is off and stop giving me work. Ultimately,
I think that's a good attitude to follow throughout life anyway, really. Just staying humble.
Yeah, but I guess in certain very particular industries like music, if your music is appreciated by people, you can actually make it a part of your character to be rude and to
you can pretty much do what you want when people enjoy your music. It is actually true, regardless of the morality of your actions.
So I don't expect people to respect me in any different way, and honestly, like, I get the rudest messages of people asking for work.
What's the weirdest thing you've ever been asked?
It's really funny. So, like, I get DMs from people, just normal, like random people who want a drawing, and instead of asking politely or like inquiring possibly about fees, they're like, draw me.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that, bro. I didn't mean it. Honestly, I did send please after. Yeah.
No, it's like...
Was this for the band?
Exactly.
No, I do the negotiation.
And if it's not for free, fuck you. Yeah, and honestly, but stuff along those lines, like, draw me, or like, can you draw me, without even a question mark. Like, I don't know, just like stuff that, like, I always think if it was in real life, if we were talking in the street, and I was a caricature artist on the street, nobody would ever approach me like that.
Yeah.
That's just enabled by the social media platform, the anonymity. Because who the hell goes up to someone and goes, draw me?
Right. Do you feel like it's a general issue within your specific niche of being like an illustrator?
Yeah.
Do you think people sometimes underrate the kind of work you have to go through, or underappreciate the amount of work you have to go through?
For sure. I think timing-wise, especially, people always assume that it's for example, it really triggers me when people call my drawings edits, which is basically what you do on Photoshop, like photo manipulation, which, not to discredit photo manipulation, which is very hard, it's, if you will, somewhat easier in terms of the fact that you don't have to create anything from scratch. You're just using pictures that already exist, and drawing is a different art, but it's just generally speaking a more lengthy process. So an edit can take 30 minutes and look very good, and a drawing in 30 minutes it will be, a draft in most cases. So people expect it to be a 10-minute job. They think that working on a drawing for 6 hours is an outrageous amount of time, but actually it's a pretty low amount of time, and I think most illustrators would agree. So it's really annoying when people expect you to be extremely quick, when that's just not possible if you want to preserve the sufficient quality. That is definitely something that happens.
Just linking back on that, and let's go linking back to the come up specifically.
Yeah.
One of your early drawings, which I really loved, was the one for Bleacher Report with The Simpsons, with Arsafan TV. How long did it take you to make that one? Just for like a benchmark.
All right.
So people understand.
Actually, I think at the time, because I was still really getting started in terms of really learning what I was doing, it was a fairly quick job, but it's because I was worse. And the better you become, the more of a perfectionist you become, and although you are quicker at doing certain things, you appreciate that there is always a next level that you can bring the drawing to if you do this and that. So effectively it always extends the period of time. So it was probably something like 4 or 5 hours, which at the time I thought was immense, but it really wasn't. And if I look back at it, I can see a number of things that I could have done and spent more time on.
I remember that one so vividly because I don't know, you'd had the Totti one, you'd had the Football Times one, we had the 50 drawings, all the international, I don't know how you did the 50 drawings as well. Again, the dedication.
Hectic.
Yeah, and again, for no real, unless fulfilling your passion is obviously the benefit there, but no like monetary benefit. You did that, just for out of goodwill, I guess, pretty much.
Yeah.
But then Bleacher Report, I think was that time. I remember it blowing up and had like 80,000 likes on Instagram. And nowadays you get that for free.
Yeah.
But those days, that was special. It was like, what was it like the first time you saw hundreds of thousands of people viewing art that you had made? Like, that's so special.
Now I'm really not too fussed by it because it's really like, I also am really ambivalent about social media. So I really don't want it to be a factor that determines how happy I am with my drawing, the amount of likes it gets. But at the time, I remember it being very exciting to have so much exposure, because it's essentially like being on TV for the first time. You just see the public reaction to what you do, and it's very gratifying to see that a lot of people appreciate it. It's not. I don't think it should ever matter totally. And actually, also, you can give me your opinion on this. how much does public appreciation determine how good you are at something. But of course, the first few times, super, gratifying.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I wanted to ask in terms of, do you ever feel like you compromise what you are interested in, what your values are, in search of those likes? I don't know whether it's drawing people in particular that you think will put stuff out there because they engage with the material far better, or stuff like that. I was just wondering, because obviously it's your job almost. It's a, like, for example, like, I don't have Instagram anymore because I just didn't think it was very good for my welfare. But like, you need you arguably, like, if you didn't have social media, like, you would. It's a central arm of your sort of promotion activities.
Unfortunately, because I also wish, for personal reasons, that I didn't have it. As I said, I'm very ambivalent towards it, and I don't think on a personal level it's good for me. Even though I use it a lot, I don't think I can use it really healthily at the end of the day. But I definitely need it from a professional point of view. I don't think I would have had the opportunities I did, and I don't think I would have my job currently if I didn't have Instagram. I think I can say that, like, with a 99% certainty, for a number of reasons. In terms of the stuff I do personally that I then decide to post, no, I really just want to have fun, and I think that because I have a portfolio in my Instagram profile, I might as well share anything I do that I'm happy with, because why not? But I don't do it to get likes. But I think when you work for a client, you really have to respect certain parameters, because if you're doing something for social media, ultimately that's the goal, engagement. So we have to make a preview for the Juventus game. Which Juventus player do we feature?
Ronaldo.
Yes, of course, every time.
Yeah.
I would love to
Kadira.
Yes. Quadrado. Yeah, I would love to draw, like, certain people in football, and I think that's also the reason why I like to focus on football, because there's so many fun characters visually and personality wise. Like, it gets really boring to draw Ronaldo every time, but you can't escape it because he's the most famous person on the planet.
You've drawn Ronaldo in like 10 different ways, I swear.
Yeah.
Like, genuinely.
And he has a very weird face, so it's very hard to draw him, actually, because we all think of him as a handsome man, right?
Oh, of course.
But when you draw someone, you really have to go deep into their features. And you look at Ronaldo and you're like, his nose is clapped. Like, have you seen his nose? Yeah. You should have a look later, because actually put it right now. So I want to show you exactly what it looks like.
Can you remember actually when they made the statue for him?
Yeah,
And they can.
I feel that man.
So I was about to say.
Oh my god, mate, no. Every time I think about the guy who made the statue, and I'm like, my brother. Fair play, because this man is not easy to make him come through.
Again, we should go back to 2018, back to the come up. I think it's a very important time. I think for you, the 2018 FIFA World Cup was a very special moment. I think looking back, well, I mean, I think that definitely. I wonder what you think. But I remember just there being a plethora of jobs around in that time, and it seemed to be like just a spate of them just running in. There was like a 10-day period where you did the mural by Box Park in Shoreditch. They literally put up a mural of your drawing in Box Park, which is ridiculous. And that was the time where Box Park was really the place to be in London to watch the World Cup.
I saw it.
Do you see it there?
Yeah.
You saw it live?
Yeah.
Mad. And then Adidas came to you, did the Messi, the goat drawing, which is ridiculous. And then lastly, bloody Copa, the Copa one, the golden boot one for Copa was also very special.
Of course.
So, and then, did you get? I mean, how did you feel in that moment? Was that quite a special? Did you realise? I think that must have been quite a key moment for feeling this could be something
really overwhelming, because those are the first big jobs with brands in the football industry like Adidas and Puma, whom I didn't think really would want my services. And then it just happened, and I really made something click in my head about where this could potentially go, because I really didn't see it coming. And then with Copa 90, I think I had been a fan of their content for like so much time, on YouTube especially, and to ultimately do something for them was gratifying in the moment and also groundbreaking for what was to come.
Maybe we should explain who Copa 90 actually are. That's probably quite a key thing.
Sure.
I don't think everyone knows. They're probably like a rather large football media company doing a variety of things.
An agency.
And an agency these days,
The first Copa 90 video I ever saw was, or at least I can remember, was FIFA Player.
FIFA Player, yeah.
Years ago.
Spencer.
FIFA Player.
Poet, like
Shocking series.
Yeah.
Incredible that actually blew him up. But just a very a special company in the history of footballing YouTube. I think
Pioneers under many respects. I think obviously Poet and Vuj would see themselves as individuals as pioneers, but I think that the platform, of course, that gave them for a lot of years gave them a lot of freedom to be themselves was Copa 90.
Copa 90 produced the best footballing series I think out there, which is Derby Days. I think Derby Days is genuinely the best thing. I remember sending the Super Classico video to like tens.
I showed my dad. Which just speaks to how good it was, because when do you really show your dad YouTube content? Rarely. And I sat my dad down.
Our work was the first thing I showed my dad.
I sat my dad down and I said, let's watch it 1 hour. It's class. I know it's good.
And he enjoyed it?
Yeah, we both loved it. Yeah. It was great.
But no, back to Copa. So
I mean, they were a very liberal like platform in this industry where it's very easy for brands, and there's such a system behind football players and clubs and brands that it's very easy to just have to adhere to whatever they need from you as a digital platform. You can only ask certain questions, you can only frame it in a certain light. And at Copa 90, I think for many years they succeeded in transcending these boundaries and just allowing people like Poet and Vuj to just like do their thing, which was brilliant. And so Copa 90 were always pioneers, and I always had massive respect.
The previous podcast episode. As well. If you want to check that out, you can pause it and then.
Look it below.
But no, and then and then that obviously materialised in like working with them. Were you there in-house in Israel?
For only a week, but it was a special week.
Because for a long time you'd just been doing freelance work, so they would just contact you, you would do a specific piece for them, and then they said to you, actually come down to the office and spend a week there.
It was a thing that they were kind of trying out at the time, and they wanted to try out with me for the first time, which was just to have an artist in residence for like 1 week, which Copa 90 were always great with this in terms of giving people exposure without making too much of a fuss of it. So they were happy to really help me grow during that week, crediting me on everything I was doing for them, interviewing me, ultimately making me feature on comments below for 30 seconds, but
special,
really making my day that day.
It made my day. It made my month day.
I was so hyped for that. It's mental because Vuj was someone that I'd first seen with the Cheeky Nando's song that must be 6 or 7 years ago. Poet a year or so afterwards. So these are people that have been like part of my teenage years.
I was really watching them since I was 15, and I told them at the time, and then they were super. It wasn't staged, but they decided to include me for whatever, a 20-second segment, and I was so happy. It was an incredible week. It gave me a ridiculous, unexpected amount of exposure, which really kicked things off from a number of points of view.
I remember that like doubling it. Like it was like literally doubling his followers. I mean, I don't. You care about that less than I do, actually.
You care to an extent, but because the possibilities that having a lot of followers on social media gives you range from if you want to sell merchandise, you have a platform to do it, to filtering through those numbers and extracting a quality audience that is always lingering amongst the rest, that then gives you specific opportunities. Because you do something for Copa 90, you have an influx on that day of 300 followers, it doesn't matter, but one of them is the editor of some magazine who then gets in touch about another opportunity. And so spending a whole week there, I had so many possible opportunities in the coming month that I couldn't actually even deal with all of them. It was really nice, really, really nice. And I didn't expect it to happen, and I think Copa 90 were great in terms of giving me that platform.
With that in mind, could you see yourself sort of in front of the camera rather than sort of than drawing?
I think it would definitely be fun, because I see myself as an outgoing person, and I think of myself as, if you will, creative in a multitude of ways, not just in terms of drawing cartoons. So I would definitely like to try, and I think you need certain skills that you can't really artificially construct. I think I could never do what Poet and Vooch do because it comes so naturally to them, and it doesn't come naturally to me in the same way.
However, how many languages do you know? Four, 5?
Whatever.
Spanish, German, Italian. You know, come on.
It doesn't matter.
You can conversate with a variety of footballers, though.
Yeah,
right?
of course.
So
okay.
It's a key skill you need to have. I mean, I see potential.
You could do some European football.
Fede draws.
Of course, it doesn't hurt, but yeah, I would definitely like to try, and I would be open to it going completely tits up and not being good, and me having to give up on that option. But I would definitely like to try. It'd be fun. I mean, anyone who is socially kind of comfortable, I think, entertains the idea of working on camera in a certain capacity. No.
Yeah. No, I want to do the camera stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I feel like this could be true of both of you as well. You're both eloquent. You're both. No, it's true. You're both confident speakers, good-looking men. You could definitely do something
as characterized by the drawing. The drawing much better looking than we excel.
I don't think I've ever had a fade that good in my life, nor a beard. But
what do you think has been the biggest moment of your career so far? The one that at least has made you the most proud of the work that you've done?
Difficult question.
Very. But I think
you ask difficult questions to get good answers.
Very true. Yes, I think. Getting a full-time position, very proud moment, because that was really the full circle. I think featuring on Comments Below because of what that show meant to me, and really I never cared that it was for 20 irrelevant seconds in some episode. I didn't give a shit because I had been watching that since I was 15, and being on it was never something I imagined would happen.
What was the title of the show? Oh, I thought he was going to know. I thought he was going to know if he was going to do the view count.
I'm sure he wanted to say it, but
I don't even remember. It was a midweek show on the Friday because that was my last day at Copa 90. I mean, so a lot of proud moments I have to say because a lot of work went behind everything. So it was never cheap gratification. It was always the product of something. So yeah, the Ronaldinho repost as well. Special. No matter how trivial that is, effectively, it doesn't mean anything. It was hilarious. I just couldn't stop laughing. Pranav was there.
It was very funny actually because I mean I was in Canada at the time and he told me that he'd done this for Ronaldinho.
No, but when it happened, you were back.
No, yeah, exactly. But when you draw it, and I remember you telling me like Ronaldinho does repost sometimes. Like I always wanted to draw Ronaldinho, and he does repost. So like I posted it. Probably won't happen though. And 2 months went by, and I eventually came back to England and visited him.
Yeah, both completely forgot about it.
And the specific day the specific day happened. The day before, you had mentioned it again and been like, oh, one day this time we might repost it.
Oh really?
But yeah. And the day after, I'm just doing some washing up. He's cooking me a lovely, I don't know, linguine or something. Italians.
I'm cooking linguine now as well.
Are you? Oh yeah. No, we've all joined the linguine gang. We've all joined the linguine gang. And then I just hear Fed pick up his phone and go, something's gone mad. He's like, Ronaldinho. It was just a special moment.
Why was there that lag time? Had you reposted it again and then he popped it up?
It's very random. I think he has a social media team that goes through everything he's tagged in, which is I don't know, hundreds of thousands of things. And yeah, they repost drawings occasionally, so they must have seen it 2 months after I made it and just went for it.
Do you have this? Because I do. You're always looking for the next opportunity or the next big moment, and sometimes when something goes right for me, sometimes I don't sort of sit there and enjoy it enough. I'll feel like, let's say you get published somewhere or you get your drawing reposted by a big name, you're thinking, well, where's the next one coming? Yeah. You don't actually suddenly think, oh my god, like Lukaku has just reposted this, or like whoever. You're thinking, all right, well, where's the next one? I wonder if that's something that you experience as well.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, yes, because I don't think it's very good for anybody. I think you should always find a balance in appreciating your successes and just being satisfied and calm for a sufficient amount of time before you move on to the next challenge. So I definitely have that. I really get over something very quickly and I immediately worry about what I can do next to top it or to continue in whatever the pathway is. It's really frustrating.
No, I'm with you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people would relate.
It's also it's this weird zone, because it's probably also what's made you quite successful at the same time, because you obviously have that drive and that motivation, and it's almost like if you want one, you need to have this kind of unfortunate excess and sort of byproduct of your hunger for success.
Sure.
Personally, I always think there's this like very key dichotomy in life, which is the distinction between contentment and ambition.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what you're saying here.
Yeah.
Like, do you allow yourself to be satisfied with the work you've done, or do you push on for more?
Yeah.
And really, it's in the middle there. There's somewhere in the middle where you're content, but you're also ambitious. I think most of the time you're like that. You appreciate the work you've done, but you know you need to continue doing that.
I would say I lean on the negative side of not being satisfied for enough time. But I think that the reason for that is that having a long-term goal helps you balance this out, because you know what you need to do to achieve that. So you know if you need to do more or if you don't. And if you don't really have a vision, you're never satisfied, because you can never feel like you've arrived anywhere. But if you have an ultimate vision, then I think it really helps to temper these feelings. If you know that the end goal is that I want to, because I set myself goals, like specific goals for a long time. I want to do an illustration for Bleacher report, and I'm not going to be happy until I do it. And then when I did, I was happy for like a sufficient amount of time.
Yeah. Well, we were gassed for you, but I mean, you're just on to the next one. Yeah.
Of course, having a group of people around you helps you to like mitigate your own approach to these things, because if everyone's excited, I mean, the Ronaldinho thing, someone actually told me today, I saw Ronaldinho reposted, that's amazing, and it happened like 4 months ago. So I'm still gassed about it, because people remind me of it. It really helps.
Say Fed's ever sad, just be like, you got 5k retweets on that, look happy.
As an artist, I can imagine in a variety of ways there's been times where you've doubted your dream, because it's quite it's an ambitious dream. You want to be able to pretty much, I remember your tweet, say to your child that you draw for a living, right? And it's like, how do you fulfill that target? Have there been times along this long road over the past few years where you've thought of quitting and going to a occupation we consider maybe more traditional in our eyes? Has that been even a consideration in your mind?
When do you trace the boundary between self-belief and delusion? I think it depends on a number of things. It depends also on the environment that we're talking about, because something, for example, like a singing career, we've seen people be completely discredited for years and then blow up in their early 30s, because maybe they go to X Factor or they strike lucky with one hit, and they're suddenly appreciated, they find their audience, and a career begins. So until the previous year, if you're doing songs in your basement at 31, uploading them to SoundCloud, and they have 200 views each, majority of people would just tell you to try and find an alternative. As I told you, until this year I didn't even believe this was gonna be a career. So that was always my mindset. I never had the goal of making this my living. I wished that it could be the case, and I'm telling you, I'm not even sure I wish that now. Referring to that tweet specifically that you said.
Yeah.
I don't want to know if I want to be drawing for a living when I have a kid. Like, I don't think so.
In that football sphere, though.
Maybe who knows? Who knows?
Well, we'll see. And we'll see if I have a kid.
Maybe that one. There's multiple aspects of that sentence, so you need to question it.
It's a big statement, but it was just to self-motivate. Either way, I think that there is more moments where you doubt yourself than moments where you believe in yourself, and self-belief depends on so many factors that, contrarily to the word, have nothing to do with yourself. It's your environment and gratification, and also the quality audience, if you will, how they react to whatever you're doing. So you can really be shaped by your environment in terms of pursuing a dream. And in my case, I think I was influenced quite favorably in terms of my family being supportive and my friends also being supportive. And still, I doubted myself. So I can't imagine how it can be when you don't have a support system. And maybe you have a talent, maybe you have all the tools you need to make it eventually. And you are so discouraged by your environment and by your own self-doubt that you don't even go there.
Yeah, and it's a weird one because we all are fairly risk averse as human beings, and therefore it lends itself to more stable careers. So the idea of, as you were saying, being a sports illustrator, particularly when you're freelance, obviously it's a bit different now that you've got a full-time gig.
Yeah.
But you would be, if you're a freelance, living from paycheck to paycheck, from commission to commission, and it's difficult. And no wonder then people fall into the sort of 9-to-5 office work that stifles the creativity and doesn't actually allow them to express themselves properly. Like I feel sort of quite similar. I had, mum and dad, they didn't pressure me at all to do anything. They just said do what you love, and I found that really, really useful. There were no sort of, you must be a doctor, you must be X, Y, Z.
You'd expect that from mine.
Yeah.
But I had the same thing. I mean, when I said I wanted to do PPE, it was questioned to a certain degree, to a degree which you should question any choice made by a child at that age. Yeah. But generally, they were very supportive and thought it was a fruitful degree. So I didn't have any of that sort of pressure either. But
when you told them you were applying to Oxford, probably.
Yes, that did help actually. Just when I said I didn't get in, it didn't. Unfortunately.
So I think it's super difficult to put your finger on where it is. The beauty of this kind of internet revolution age is also its sort of greatest weakness, in the sense that the internet has provided me with opportunities to explore and follow my career. I've been able to write because online publications, you can do that. The problem is everyone else can. And then that makes it really, really competitive. The same with being like a YouTuber or being a singer, and you put something online, as you were talking about before. It's super, super competitive, and sometimes it's very hard. But actually what you've got to think is, and what I think is, I see people on TV speaking about kind of current affairs for a living, and I read newspapers more than I should. And I genuinely think, I could do this for a living, and I do. And you've got to, maybe it is delusional. I don't think it is. No. And I genuinely think that, look, I'm not going to come out with a grad job at The Economist or something, or the FT. That would be my dream job, but it's not. I don't think it's going to happen. That doesn't mean that it won't one day. Right. And what I keep thinking is, I have the skills, and you've got to believe in yourself. The right opportunity might not come along today, but it will tomorrow.
But see, the thing is, with someone like you, I feel like everybody around you, including me, would agree that that isn't delusional, that you have the capacity to do something like that. But I think there's people who for numerous years they don't have any support, and everybody thinks whatever they produce, especially in the creative industry, is not worth a dollar.
The paper is written on.
And then eventually something happens that proves the opposite. So what I wonder always is anyone ever delusional? Is there an audience for everything, and all you have to do is put yourself out there indefinitely? Or is there a borderline where you decide that you should just drop something? Is there, I don't know, is it age related? Is it success related?
But the number one job that people want growing up as a kid is to be a vlogger or be a YouTuber. And then rather than be a sort of a doctor or a fireman or even a sports star or pop star, it's to do these things. And the problem is, therefore, that like 95% of the people that do it can't make a living off of it. So I would say, I don't know if there's a sort of metric or criteria to be used, because some people, like you say, just blow up completely randomly at the age of like 40 because they featured on a video from a big name person.
You don't know what the factors are that can actually help you make it your living. So I really don't have an answer in terms of when do you tell someone to give it up, because you cannot know what will happen.
I don't think there is a specific answer to that question, but what we can say is that in this day and age, the barriers to entry into all these different industries has decreased tremendously.
For entry, certainly.
You can just post on Instagram,
because you have the
someone will find you. SoundCloud, someone might find you
to get it on the web.
And, I mean, previous to this, you have the labels or the big media companies.
You relied on whoever had the platform, and now you can have your own personal platform.
So we can safely say this is the best time to try and have some sort of creative role, go into some sort of niche industry. But
the best and the worst, as Tom said, because it also increases competition, and it cheapens whatever you do. Because if you're one of 10,000 aspiring football writers, you have the opportunity to do it, but so does everybody else, and it just makes your work fade away into the midst of the many and many who want to do exactly what you want to do.
And that's why carving out a kind of niche for yourself is
Very
super important. Like I know, I mean, in terms of your drawings, like I see a drawing of yours and I know that it's a Fede,
which is a great compliment.
Yeah, you definitely can.
So thank you.
No, 100%.
No, and I follow a few kind of illustrators as well. I didn't before I like knew that like you did it, but then you sort of follow it more closely because you've got a kind of vested interest in it in a way.
Yeah.
Like and honestly, like I can safely say this, like if I ever have doubts about myself, I do kind of think about you. I genuinely do, because I'm trying to cut it in a career which is not too dissimilar in the sense that it's a lot of freelance stuff. It's super competitive.
Building your legitimacy.
Yeah, and sometimes you think, well, this is the good times are never coming. But what I was saying before about it's just around the corner, that these things can happen. Yeah. And I know the fact is, once you get this success, I tend to think is kind of, it's like exponential almost in a way, like not in a sort of in a curvature style, but in the sense that, like you say, when you have the opportunity with comments below, you suddenly have more opportunities than you know what to do with.
Yeah,
it's suddenly this explosion.
You really don't know what makes it tick. Yeah. And before that, there is a lot of moments where it's easier to give up than not to. Yeah. I think that the most important thing, really, from my personal experience, and I don't know if this is the case in all situations, was really support from just the people around me who loved me and really made me overcome my self-doubt, because there were a lot of moments where stuff didn't go well, big commissions fell through, a client was not happy with what I did, I was blocked, whatever. So many examples.
Or it's like a circumstantial one and he doesn't score, or he scores and they don't.
Exactly, and the drawing gets chucked, and then it's annoying.
Have you got, without getting too much into specifics, are there any sort of any context or any examples that you could use without kind of obviously kind of burning any bridges there?
I mean, a lot of stuff that you create in this environment for like digital media brands that cover football for entertainment, if we want to call it this, is preparing things to be posted in the hypothetical eventuality. Really
France win the World Cup, and
exactly. For example, France as opposed to Croatia winning the final,
or Firmino scoring.
If you're the illustrator who did the Croatia illustration and then Croatia lose, it's a bit annoying to see your work go unused and just chucked in the bin. You get paid regardless, but you get no gratification from the work being used because of circumstantial factors, which is annoying. It's really easy for that to upset you. Or like, as much as I was saying before that I don't want the performance of my work on social media to affect me, if you do something, a big project for a client, and then it doesn't achieve the intended goal, aka engagement on social media, you kind of feel like you've let yourself and the client down. And I don't think, if it hadn't been for the people around me in the crucial phase of beginning to do these things, I wouldn't have been able to continue sometimes, because I really thought, okay, I don't want to put myself through this again, because it's just like depressing. It makes me feel like what I'm doing is not worthwhile. So I would say that the support system that you have around you is extremely important in just perpetuating self-belief.
Yeah, I think there's actually something quite useful we could talk about to help aspiring artists who are maybe on the road that you were a couple of years ago. Yeah. Would you have any tips or specific things you did throughout your come up that made you successful or allowed you to grow your following, things that you really look back on and thought, I'm glad I did that, I'm glad I had this mindset towards the activity?
I think that the most important thing is the following. A lot of people who have already arrived, they will tell aspiring artists to not sell themselves for cheap and not take on opportunities just for exposure. And in principle, I agree, because you should never allow people to like exploit you. Yeah. Even though you need the exposure, it should always be appropriately compensated. Yeah. So in principle, I agree, but also I think it's the kind of thing that you're able to say when you've already arrived.
Yeah.
So in reality, and this for some other illustrators might be a controversial thing to recommend, but I would say
Spicy take of the day.
there it is, fucking validating the name of the podcast.
Yeah.
Here I am. But I would say that actually when you're up and coming, especially if you're young and you're never gonna have more time than you have growing up. If you're at uni, you can decide how to manage your schedule however you please. Ultimately, you know what your goals are at the end of the term or at the end of the year, and it's up to you how you fit them into your 24-hour day. I would say that if you have the time and if you want it, you should always do something if ultimately you feel like doing it. Even though you know you're getting mugged off because they know you're up and coming and they don't want to pay you, or they're giving you a load of work which is much more than you're supposed to be able to do in that amount of time. Sure, eventually you should aim to stop selling yourself out like that. But at the beginning, you really have to just grasp opportunities. Because otherwise you have no foundation to build on. You have no legitimacy to force people to respect you. And something always comes out of something. And it's important to just be busy at the beginning. Do things, build legitimacy, experiment, improve just by doing things. And you never know who in 3 months' time is going to see something that you did, maybe for free, and being exploited at the time, and offer you a paid opportunity to do the same thing for them. You never know. And I saw this so many times on my own work. And I was telling Pranav that I got into a habit of kind of tracking the consequences of something that I would do. So maybe I would do something for free initially, and I would think, okay, at the moment the balance is negative in terms of what benefits this job has brought me. But maybe 3 months down the line, I would see that someone had contacted me off the back of it and offered me a paid opportunity, and I had already repaid the previous one, and I was building and building and building. And yeah, I would honestly say that's my main piece of advice. At the beginning, you have to, like, as rough as that sounds, you have to eat some shit, and then it's true.
Best way to put it, I think.
Really, you have to.
I was going to say indirect, the indirect payoffs, but I feel like that's a much more kind of vivid analogy.
I'm sorry, I'm more raw than eloquent.
No, it is eloquent.
I'll let you put it in.
It's your fourth language, so it's alright.
Yeah. I'll let you put it in.
Is that would you say it's your fourth language?
It's second.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah.
It's not first.
No.
My Italian is withering.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. Just in terms of the way in which you can sometimes just feel like nothing's coming off this.
Yeah,
and
but
then,
you never know.
Yeah, and then people will say to me, "Oh, I heard you on the radio, like doing this thing," or like I've read, like you say, you've seen your drawing. I don't know what it is. It might be something that they love, and then suddenly, that's the thing that does it for you.
I have so many examples, and actually, very quickly, a specific one related to I think. A solid percentage of the reasons as to why I have my current full-time job. One summer ago, so more than a year ago, I made a drawing for someone, a portrait of someone for free, someone with a platform, just because I had time in the summer, and they asked for it for free, and normally I wouldn't do that, and I thought,
Draw me.
Don't straps.
pretty much.
Don't straps.
No, not Don Straps. Shit, not him. Someone else.
If I speak,
I prefer not to speak. But anyway, I did this thing, and I thought it really annoyed me because I was doing it for free, and I thought I had passed that point. But I still thought I had enough time to do it, and something might come of it. And effectively, what happened is that this person had a platform full of important people within the niche, and someone from 433 followed me off the back of it and offered me my first freelance opportunity with 433, which definitely led to me eventually talking to them about a full-time position. So I really think, like, sure, that connection might have come about in another way, but had I not done that first portrait for free and used up 2 hours of my time in a boring summer day, like I definitely had time for it, I would have never known that it was a missed opportunity for a full-time position.
I think something that links probably the last two topics together is, one, do everything you can, no matter what opportunity comes, do it, even if you're not receiving monetary benefit. And second is something that's really out of your control, but it's just be competent. Like, if you're good and you're getting exposure, you are undoubtedly going to make it. You're undoubtedly going to grow your following. Patience, exactly. Be patient. And I think that's something that you had in bucket loads, exactly. In bucket loads, you were very
bucket loads of shit.
That I ate.
That you ate, exactly.
But no, I was lucky because I started. The earlier you start, the more patience you can afford to have. Because at university, no one's pressuring you to make a living out of it. So for 3 years, I had the opportunity to just see where it goes. I'm just doing it for fun. Sometimes I do a commission, sometimes I don't do it. And then come the end of uni, I was starting to kind of shit myself. But then, obviously, I got lucky and something came out of it. But yeah, the earlier you begin, that's another piece of advice I would say. Like, if anyone, I don't know whether it's going to happen, but if anyone is listening who is like below the age of 18 and wants to make it in some creative industry, here I am. Just fucking do it, right? Because you don't know. As I was telling you before as well, you need to be shit before you're good, and it's better to get that dirty part out of the way when you're young, because you're gonna have to go through it, and you'd rather go through it when you're 16 than when you're 25 and everyone's got a proper job and responsibilities. You want to really get that out of the way as soon as you can. So just like be busy and as early as possible. I think that's important.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think that's fantastic advice. And in that same vein, I think we've had a lot of time here, and really you need to get back to the workshop. So
not really.
He's pumped me up full of inspiration.
I feel motivated
and adrenaline. And I'm gonna go out and write my essay.
I'm gonna achieve all my dreams.
I'm actually a bit gutted that I spoke so much, because I feel like when I'm with both of you, I just absorb so much wisdom that I'm just annoyed that I took up all the time that we had to just talk about myself.
Well, you know what you have to do. You'll have to, come and check out the channel and look for next.
Or just come on again. Just come on every day.
Yeah.
Just join. Quit the job.
We could call it, if we do Fridays with Fede. If we make
Fridays
it.
with Fede.
I can fly over every Friday after work.
When we get the budget. When the budget goes.
Or 433, fly us over to Amsterdam.
Leave it. I'll have a conversation with the board.
And then we'll take it together as a trio. Imagine.
If I eat, everybody eats.
The whole gang.
Stay humble.
I think that's a lovely way.
But great, Fed. Thank you so much for joining us.
Cheers, coming on, my bro.
Pleasure, man.
Thanks, guys.
I mean, we just spend most days together anyway. It doesn't matter, does it? It's pretty much every day.
All right, but cheers, man. Cheers, Maggie.
I think that's one point. Boom.
And Red Stripe sponsorship coming soon.
Indeed.
You bet so.
Right. Great.